Some of the experts on TV were saying that the way that the Twin Towers were constructed and the manner in which they collapsed, they were bound to be voids. And in those voids was the potential to find survivors. My family and I, we hung on to those words. My older brother, Joseph Michael Giacconi, he had an office on the 103rd floor of the North Tower. And he had gone to work early that Tuesday morning. And he was missing, and we were going out of our minds. Rabbi Earl Grollman, a pioneer in the field of grief counseling, wrote that grief is not a disease, a disorder, or a sign of weakness. It is an emotional, physical, and spiritual necessity, the price we pay for love. The only cure for grief is to grieve. Grief is hard. It's not supposed to be easy. That's why we have 5, 7, and sometimes 12 stages of it. And chief among these stages are disbelief and shock, guilt, pain, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. In Jim Giacconi's first-hand account following the attack of 9/11 and the disappearance of his brother, we see him start to deal with grief, starting with denial and ending somewhere closer to acceptance. Brother, by Jim Giacconi. I had immediately tried to gain access, but was turned away again and again. Ultimately, too many people were volunteering. It became too chaotic. A couple of days later, a buddy of mine called. He's a firefighter up in Harlem. So I go down to his firehouse and I get dressed in his bunker gear, and me, him, and another firefighter drive on our way down to Ground Zero. We got below Canal Street and started encountering checkpoints, either military or police personnel with automatic weapons. Once they saw that we was dressed as firefighters, they waved us on through. The guy driving us, he parked all the way on the east side. He was afraid we'd be blocked in by more emergency vehicles, and so we ended up walking blocks and blocks west. We got about a block away from the debris field when I thought I had prepared myself for what I was about to walk into, and I thought I could handle pretty much anything thrown at me, but I became sick. After I regained my composure, we entered the pile. There are no words. There's no pictures. There's no way to accurately describe what I saw and what I heard and what I smelled. And I have no rescue and recovery training whatsoever, but I looked and I saw no voids. I saw no void. It was apocalyptic. My buddy, he wanted to meet up with the other firefighters from his house. They were all working on the west side of the pile, and we were all the way on the east. We found the best way to go around was we go down a side street, the side door of an adjacent building, then into either the cellars or the sub-cellars, because all of the main floors are completely destroyed. The buildings are all pretty much a city block long, so we'd walk the distance underground, come to the stairway on the other side, go up, across the street, over, down, over, and over again. Several times we'd see these messages written on the walls, just usually by other firefighters, just begging for any information on one of the friends who was still missing. Usually written in soot with one of the fingers. We ultimately came out of the base, the atrium of the Winnegotten building. Winnegotten building was this iconic and beautiful atrium, and it was completely destroyed. We climbed on the pile and began to work the bucket brigade. After a while, my buddy said that it was time to go home. I'm pretty sure he picked up on the fact that I was completely and totally defeated. We'd become separated from the guy who drove us there. And there's no transportation anywhere. But a cop, he offers to drive us as far as Midtown. Before I got in the car, I called my dad. Called him and I said, I said I was sorry. I said that Joe is not coming home. The cop, he dropped us off on 42nd Street, and I don't remember the avenue. I remember stepping out onto the sidewalk to try and gain my bearings when a couple, they walked by with a young boy, and I noticed the man, he did a double take when he saw me. He stopped and he turned and he stood in front of me, and he extended his hand, and before I could reach out and shake it, he fell forward and hugged me. And he cried. He said, I am sorry for the loss of your brothers. He thought I was a firefighter. It's amazing to me how many thoughts can fire off in the blink of an eye, in the fraction of a second, because in that millisecond, I understood that man needed to cry. And in that millisecond, I felt this horrible, horrible guilt. And in that same millisecond, I reasoned that it was okay, because he has used the word brothers.